We're in East Atlanta on the campus of Mohammed Schools, the little big school on the hill. Actually, it's two schools, the Clara Muhammad Elementary School and the W.D. Mohammed High School. We'll be speaking with the principal and director, Sister Qur'an Shakir. So join us today on Inside Islam as we go inside Mohammed Schools.
Well, I was born and raised Muslim right here in the Atlanta area, and my family is Muslim. So I come from my mother, my father, my brothers, my sisters, uncles. We're all Muslim. And so I went to the Mohammed Schools prior to it being called the Sister Clara Mohammed Schools. It was the Muhammad University of Islam, and I attended Muhammad University of Islam. And the school ended up closing in the late 70s, and at that time, I left the school to go on to college. So my education here is with the Mohammed Schools. I'm the principal and director of the Mohammed Schools of Atlanta here, and it's so exciting to have that kind of position, having a legacy here at the school and being a student, and then coming and teaching here for 22 years, and now serving as the principal director of the school for the last 3 years. So it's been a joy to be at the school for a quarter of a century. My family is very much involved in the Islamic community. My mother is among the first 10 who were here in the Atlanta area when Islam came to the area. So we call her one of the pioneers of Islam here in the Atlanta area. And my father was also with her at that time. In fact, my father came first, and then my mother came to see what was pulling his attention to the fact that he was changing his life and transforming. And being here at the Atlanta Masjid community, my mother just naturally took hold of making sure that we were all involved in the community. So she began to work with fundraising to make sure that we had classes. She taught the Muslim girls training classes. My father was a minister and my mother was a captain, so they had involvement then in the community. But they raised us to be active in the community, to be people who give back. And that is, if anything that I could say is her legacy, I would say that that's one of her major legacies, is that she taught all of us to be involved in the community. All of my children have 5 children, so 4 of them have come through the school, pioneer graduates, meaning that they started the school when they were age 3, graduated through the 12th grade, and went on to make their own positions in the world. So I have one daughter who recently, she's an alumni of the school. We're very proud. She's a doctor now, so she has established her own urgent care facility here in the Atlanta area. I have a son who manages a restaurant here in the Atlanta area. And then my other daughter just graduated college, and she's going on now to get her doctorate so that she can become a physical therapist. And I have one who's also a nurse at a local hospital, and one who's a 12th grader now, so he'll be graduating this year, inshallah. The thing that makes Mohammed Schools a wonderful place to be, for me especially as a leader in the school, and for the children here at the school, is that our mission is to help our children to become effective global citizens using the tools that God has given them. So we help them to understand that they have a duty by God because He put in every single person a special talent. And every one of us have to look at ourselves and examine and see, what is my special talent? What is it that I have to contribute to the world? And then go out and do that. So that's what the Mohammed Schools does. We have this mission where we make sure that every child believes, one, in God and the oneness of God, and then take that appreciation for God and find Him in creation, find Him in the things that they are tied to inside of themselves, and then take that and see, how can I make an impact on the world? And it doesn't matter if they're 3 or 103. Every single human being has a duty and responsibility to go out and make an impact in the world. And that's what the Mohammed Schools does, is that we teach every one of our students to be involved. In order to graduate from our school, from middle school and high school, our students have to do community service. They have to be involved in the community, prove that they've done this community service, because that is so important to us. And then understanding yourself, major to us. So many times our children go through school systems and we call ourselves being educated without understanding who we are, understanding or appreciating our own history and heritage as individuals from whatever culture we come from, but also our heritage as religious beings. The Mohammed Schools originally opened, like I said, as the University of Islam. That was in 1965. We ended up closing in 1976. We immediately began to revamp, restructure. We reopened in 1980 as Sister Clara Muhammad School. At that time, we had 60 students and 11 staff. In the, 35 years that we have been open since 1980, we are proud to say that we have graduated this will be our 24th graduating class coming up. So we have over 400 alumni. And our alumni are making contributions in the world that you would not believe. And we call it the little big school on the hill because we come from meager means. And yet, even though we have these meager means, we're making great contributions. We have a judge, we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have business people. And my favorite is that we have people who are family men and women who believe in marriage, who believe in sustaining the life in the community. All of these people making great contributions in our society. We have approximately 16 of our graduates, of our alumni, 16 alumni couples, so that's 32 individuals who've married each other, and they came through our school system. So I tell parents sometimes that when your child comes here, they have friends for life, but also you can have a partner for life in marriage. We have a wonderful legacy that's being established by our alumni where they see the value of coming through the Mohammed school system. And because of that education that they got, then they bring their children back. And their children are attending the school, whereas I think we have 40% of our students are students of alumni. And then we're proud to say that now we're seeing our graduates are now the children of alumni graduating from our school. So that's a wonderful legacy that they're leaving with their children, where they are getting the same education that they themselves got. So we're very proud of our alumni, proud of the contributions that they're making to the school. Some of them, when they graduate, they come back and say, I want to give back, and they become teachers here at the school. So over the years, we've had, every year, we have at least 2 alumni who are teachers at the school. The Atlanta Masjid is at the helm of the Mohammed Schools, although the Mohammed Schools has its own board that is appointed by the Majlis of the Atlanta Masjid. So that board is the board that is the governing body for the school. But the masjid is the community that's tied to and connected to the school, the community that feels the Mohammed Schools to be its heartbeat for that community. This idea of having a school isn't something that we just came up with. It's something that our dear Prophet, peace be upon him, Prophet Muhammad, has promoted amongst the Muslims because education is very important to Muslims. The Mohammed Schools, although we are connected with the Atlanta Masjid, is also a source of pride and joy for Muslims all over Atlanta, Georgia, the United States, and even in the world, mainly because the concepts that we promote, the things that our students are involved in, the things that we are involved in, from pen pals to community service, to writing and doing things with other communities, those things tie us to other communities. So the masjid, the Atlanta Masjid, is the immediate tie to it, but we have a broader connection to Muslims all over the United States and all over the world. So the Mohammed Schools became a model for some of these schools because of the way that we maintain our standards and set goals for our school, and others look up to us and look to us for direction and guidance. So it's important for us to keep a tie and a connection to many communities. I think it's important for our students to be tied and connected to other communities, to get exposure to other communities, because to be these effective global citizens, then they have to know and understand more than just the people that they interact with on a daily basis. They need to interact with a diversity of people, and that's important in that exposure for them. It's important to be involved in an environment where it's a part of the education. It's the system by which we teach our children. There are a lot of Muslims who understand that, and because they understand that, then they are willing to send their children as young as 12 years old to Atlanta, and they stay home, send their children here, and allow their children to board and live with other families to get that Islamic education, because there aren't schools in their area, but they feel it's important that they get it. Then we also have families who are willing to uproot and move to Atlanta to reestablish themselves and their families here to get that Islamic education, to be a part of this Mohammed Schools of Atlanta and this education that we offer here. And with it comes a lot of struggles and a lot of opportunities, and they're willing to make the sacrifice for the sake of their children and the future that they see ahead for generations to come. The idea of global education is important because the world is small now. It's not the world that we knew 20 or 30 years ago. Our children are tied and connected with people overseas very easily. So now what we do is we tie and connect them and make sure they're exposed so they can be these ambassadors. They can be imams. They can be translators. They can hold roles that help tie them to other countries, other places. We have students who have come to us from other countries, Thailand, Bangladesh, Senegal, other places they've come to us, but also we have people in these lands who said, I want to be a part of the system. I can't send my children there, but I want the curriculum. How can I do that? So we share that with them so they get this education, because it's a unique education that we offer here at the Mohammed Schools. And in connecting and tying, then this global citizenship becomes something that's real for us, for us and our children.
The mission of Mohammed Schools is to provide an education based on Quranic principles in our universal application.
Our goal is to teach all students to accept the God-given responsibilities and full potentials
as we provide a nurturing environment that engages students in discovery and critical thinking.
We strive to develop a cooperative partnership among students, family, and community, and creating a dynamic, prosperous, God-conscious community of enlightened leaders and effective global citizens.
I'm God-conscious, I am respectful, I am responsible, I am trustworthy, I am prepared. I'll respect myself, others, and the environment. I'll strive to do my best at all times.
Oh, sing, children of the world. I can't hear you. Come together and hear the call. Sing, children of the world. Good job. Islam will unite us.
The lesson that I've learned at Claire Mohammed Schools is to try your best and to keep pushing yourself to do more than what you're capable of doing.
Keep God first and success is yours, because if you believe in God and you trust in Him and ask for His help always, you can do whatever you want.
They teach me to be steadfast in learning and to always study and to reach our goals, no matter what they are.
Welcome and God's peace be with you. I'm Imam Fatima El-Amin, and we're at the Gregory A. Adams Juvenile Justice Center, and we're in the courtroom number 4, which is the courtroom of Judge Fatima El-Amin. She is one of the 100 influential Georgia Muslims, and we're going to interview her in her office here at her courtroom. Join me as we go inside Islam today.
I am a full juvenile court judge in Dekalb County. I was born and raised as a Muslim. My parents were both activists in the Muslim community. My father was the imam of the Muslim community, or the equivalent of the Islamic leader. My mother was for many years a homemaker, and then she became a teacher at the Muslim school, Clara Muhammad School, that I attended. She ultimately rose through the ranks and became the principal of the school. So I have a very deep history in terms of being intimately involved in the Muslim community in Atlanta. I attended the Mohammed Schools of Atlanta from age 4 when I started pre-K, and I went all the way through the Mohammed Schools. I never went to any other school until I graduated from 12th grade from WD Mohammed High School. Upon graduation, I received a scholarship to Harvard University in Cambridge. I went there and I was a joint major in Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations, which essentially is Arabic and Middle Eastern Studies, as well as psychology. One of the accomplishments that I am proudest of at Harvard was that I wrote my senior honors thesis on the hijab. Specifically, the name of my thesis was the hijab, understanding the correlation between Islamic dress and self-esteem among African American Muslim women. And that thesis received magna cum laude distinction at Harvard. When I left there, I went to attend Emory University. I went there on full scholarship, and I left Emory and became an assistant district attorney. I was assistant district attorney for about 4 or 5 years. I handled not only cases in juvenile court and superior court regarding criminal matters, I also handled some of our civil matters. But I think some of my most compelling experience in the DA's office came as being an appeals attorney for the DA's office. When I left there, I left because I had a baby, and I decided that I wanted to take off a little time to stay at home with my son. I worked briefly as a real estate attorney, and then the real estate market crashed, and it wasn't as lucrative as it had been. And so at that time, I went to work as a child advocate attorney for Dekalb County, and I essentially stayed there for about 10 years. I went from being a staff attorney to a supervisor in the office, and it was from that position that I was able to be promoted and be appointed by the Superior Court judges as a judge here in the juvenile court. It's interesting being a judge. Like I said, my prior experience was as an assistant DA and also as a child advocate attorney. So I had pretty much seen some of everything. And also as an appeals attorney, I would have to write the appellate briefs for some of the more significant cases too. So I'm intimately familiar with armed robberies and rapes and murders. And then as a child advocate attorney, I was intimately familiar with some of the worst abuse and neglect cases you ever would want to see. But it has really been interesting as a judge. The work is so much more challenging, because what I always tell people is, as an attorney, when the court case does not go well, oftentimes an attorney can say, it was the judge. we did everything we could do, blame the judge. And now I sit in a different vantage point where I am the judge, and so it carries a different level of responsibility. It carries a different level of stress and pressure, frankly, that I did not anticipate. Most of the cases that I deal with either have to do with children who are misbehaving or parents who are misbehaving. And when I say that, I handle delinquent cases where those are the children who are getting into trouble, the children who are committing crimes, from your simpler crimes such as fighting teachers to your even more violent crimes. And then when I say parents who are misbehaving, on the dependency side, I handle children who are victims of abuse and neglect. So typically, these are children whose parents have done some very awful things to them or have just completely abandoned them. And so it's a very tough job. I mean, in effect, I see the worst of the worst. And I think one of the things that really helps me to cope is my religious founding and my upbringing, my religious foundation, rather. Because the way I was raised in the religion of Islam, one of the core principles is that we are innately good. It's sort of a distinction between, you know, the concept in Christianity of original sin. In Islam, you're taught everyone is created good. And so I often rely on that when I'm assessing a case, and it also helps me from becoming too jaded and too negative, because I look for the glimpses of positivity. And so one of the things that really helps me make it through is I might have 10 cases that are just some of the most egregious fact patterns that you ever want to hear. And they're not just fact patterns, they're real life episodes. But then I will get the one case where I really, really see where I'm making an immediate impact. And so just like even today, I'm exhausted. I've had a long day on the bench, but the case I had right before this interview, the grandmother just stopped and said, I just really need to thank you. So I think my Islamic upbringing and my own personal upbringing has also really given me a strong sense of family. So it's really important to me that even when the parents are not up to task, that I really do what I can to help the grandparents and the extended family step up to the plate and be able to get their children out of the system. In 4 weeks, and I expect to get an update from all of the attorneys. I expect for all of the psychological evaluations to be completed. And when we come back in 4 weeks, I will make a decision as to whether or not I am going to dismiss the case based on whatever the outcomes of the psychological evaluations say. So I think one of the biggest challenges in a position such as mine is to help the children that I work with and the families that I serve tap into a greater calling and mission. I think so often as a community, we get caught up in our day-to-day challenges, going to work, paying the bills. And so I think a lot of times that can create not only a society that is no longer attentive to the things that really matter in life, but oftentimes that can create a society of people who are very self-consumed and selfish. And so I think it's very important, no matter what your background, to be conscious that there is a force that often we may not fully understand, that bigger than all of us on the scene. And that can be whatever you regard it as. Some people regard it as the universe. Some people call it a spirit. Some people refer to it as God. But I think it's very important in a position such as mine to help people aspire to that higher level where they can realize that so much of life is so much bigger and more pervasive than our little existences and our day-to-day occurrences and involvement. So I think that's very important to help people understand that it's all connected and that we are all one community, and to always aspire to a higher calling.
I hope you have enjoyed our journeys onto the campus of Mohammed Schools and speaking with Sister Qur'an Shakir, the director and the principal of those schools, as well as our journey inside the juvenile courts of DeKalb County with the full judge of juvenile courts, Fatima El-Amin, who happens to be an alumnus of the Mohammed Schools. God says that we should seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave and go as far as China in finding knowledge. That's the principles that are in Islam, and we hope that you have seen that in real life as we went inside Islam today at Mohammed Schools and into the courtroom of Fatima El-Amin. Thank you. Until next time, God's peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum.